think here what we're getting is a certain error of radical Christian fundamentalism transmuted to atheism. In other words, a lot of, I think, very foolish statements made about the Bible. And I can sort of see why, if that's your view of the Bible, you would quickly become an atheist. Statements like, the same guy wrote the Old Testament as wrote the New Testament. Wrong. It wasn't the same guy. A lot of different people wrote the Bible. When Paul was writing his letters to the Romans, it wasn't as if God wrote it. Paul wrote a letter to the Romans, and another one to the Corinthians, and another one to the Philippians, and these were practical advice to churches which had very different problems. So what I'm getting at here is this is a very, very, I would say, uneducated view of Scripture. But I want to get here to a deeper point, which goes beyond all this. In some senses, I was struck by Dan's invocation, smile, because there's no hell. And I think in some senses here we get a deep clue into the answer to the question of this debate. Can we be good without God? We get a deep clue, actually. We often think about what's the motive of religious belief. We never think of this question. What is the motive for unbelief? Why would someone want to reject God? And I want to suggest an answer, because the public answers are all pompous. I reject God because I'm a disciple of the data, I've been looking at the heavens, I just don't see the evidence out there. That's a motive. I don't think it's the main motive. The main motive was stated by Dan. I think the main motive for rejecting God is this. Dostoevsky put it very well. If God is not, everything is permitted. Now, Dostoevsky meant this as very scary advice. If God is not, moral chaos comes into the world. But a certain kind of modern man has figured out that there is a gospel of liberation here. If God is not, everything is permitted. If God is not, we don't have 10 commandments. If God is not, there are not all these thou shalt nots that will control my life. If God is not, I have moral freedom. In other words, we try to get out from under the shadow of moral judgment in the simplest way possible by abolishing the judge. And it seems to me ultimately that this is not just a denial of God, but it's a very denial of the morality that is within us. Ultimately, it is an attempt to suppress one side of our own nature. It is ultimately to encourage a certain kind of selfishness that is deeply within us and has Darwinian roots. Tocqueville said it is the function of Christianity in America to balance the innate selfishness of society and the selfishness unleashed to some degree by forms of capitalism and so on. I think ultimately we can be moral without God, but with God we're going to have ultimately a deeper, better, richer, and more moral life. Thank you.